You all know about the most popular coffee shop in the world, Starbucks. Founded on March 30, 1971, Starbucks operates currently in 33,833 locations around the world. The company did not become the largest coffee shop in the world just in one day. It took time to grow such a large venture and make it the best in the world. Though Starbucks is the most successful coffee shop chain in the world, the company didn't always make a fortune out of where it went. We have seen Starbucks starting to fail in the UK but settling down well in China. The company has done well in almost every part of the world, but it had to face immense competition working in the market of Australia. Also, the company faced some drastic challenges in its ways to operate in Australia. From a perspective, the big Starbucks project in Australia was one of the greatest failures of all time. In today's case study, we will explore why Starbucks failed in Australia. The reason why Starbucks failed in Australia are explored in this case study. Lucrative expansion opportunities. The market of Australia looked very lucrative for Starbucks. In the year 2022, it is still the 13th largest economy in the world with a gross domestic product of 1.3 trillion. Also, back then in the year 2000, Australia was one of the largest economies in the world. Starbucks saw this opportunity and opened its first store in Australia. Also, the country already had an existing market for coffee, which was part of its culture.
It's the city that never sleeps, and New Yorkers are beginning to abandon coffee giants like Starbucks for a uniquely Australian caffeine hit. A barista from Lismore has even managed to bump the franchise out of one of the Big Apple's most famous landmarks.
Even in the year 2022, the coffee market of Australia was $10.7 billion, which is one of the highest in the world. The country's coffee industry had a growth of 2.5% in the year 2022. This shows how fascinated Australian is about coffee, coffee shops, and coffee in their culture. As Australians were crazy about coffee since then, Starbucks Australia decided to expand its operations over the region. By the year 2008, the company made it to 87 unique locations operating in the Australian region. But if you look into the market size of Australia and the years spent, it was an average of 10.11 coffee shop openings every year from 2000 to 2008. The company made very fast movements in the market and focused on market expansion more than customer acceptability. While the first thing you need to do in a new culture is to adapt to its people's expectations and then move. Without focusing much on the needs of the customers, Starbucks tried to grow in the market through faster expansion. Though the company launched so many coffee shops in the region, these outlets could not match the tastes of average Australian consumers. Also, the existing coffee shop industry in Australia was very rich with higher customer acceptability. If you want to grow in a market, organic development is the best way to do so. You can take the example of YouTube in this situation. Most of the world's greatest YouTubers made it to the top through organic market development. They did not use boosting or any kind of paid sponsorships to make people accept their content. They focus mainly on their content quality rather than quantity and grow their market. Starbucks did not follow the rules of organic marketing and failed in the Australian market. While the other Australian coffee shop chains in Australia focused more on their quality, Starbucks Australia focused on increasing their quantity and playing with the numbers. This risky strategy backfired very soon in the Australian market. The company did so poorly in the Australian market that it made $105 million in losses in only 7 years of its operations. After making these huge losses, the company borrowed $54 million from America and attempted to get success in the Australian market. But in 2008, the global financial crisis hit the shores of Australia too. Starbucks Australia could not suffer the global financial crisis in 2008 and closed 61 of its shops by the end of the year. Competition in the national market. We all know very well that Starbucks is the leading coffee house chain in the world, and the company has gained a good reputation over the years. The company has made very well in the national markets of different regions, but not in Australia. You will be surprised to know that Starbucks never really was able to compete with the domestic coffee shop chains in the region. One of the major factors influencing business efficiency is the cost-effectiveness of operations. If a company fails to minimize its operational costs, it will fail in the market eventually. Starbucks faced a similar problem in Australia. The company could not reduce its operational costs less than the local coffee shop chains. So, the company had to offer coffee at a higher price than the local shops. This was one of the major factors that influenced the company's failure in Australia. Another company that still well operates in the Australian region is Gloria Jeans. The company has more than 30 million customers in the Australian market whom their services regularly. The adaptability with the local market and lowering the price offered has made Gloria Jeans remain in the Australian market and do well. Also, one unique strategy worked very well for Gloria Jeans in the Australian market that Starbucks did not use. Gloria Jeans introduced Australian local drinks in their stores, while Starbucks didn't. The introduction of local drinks in the stores helped Gloria Jeans to interact with the regular Australian consumer more than Starbucks. Poor customization of products. The first mistake done by Starbucks in the Australian market was poor market research. The company did not focus much on studying Australian consumer behavior and focused more on faster growth. But the concept of faster growth can only be assured when you focus on your consumer preferences more than anything. Starbucks Australia, from the beginning of its operations, tried to make the Australian consumer adapt to the taste of Starbucks. But an average Australian consumer firstly focuses on their own coffee culture before making purchase decisions. In this scenario, most Australian consumers did not like Starbucks in the first place. If we look at the matter more closely, Americans like sugary coffee served by Starbucks. But the Australians did not like the sugary coffee as much as the regular US consumer did. When you do business in different regions and you sell food or drinks, you need to study the taste preferences of the average consumer before expansion. The taste preference of people varies highly even if they are from different states of the same country. As the average Australian consumer did not like sugary coffee served in America, the second thing they looked into was the price of the coffee. As mentioned earlier, the company could not offer cheaper offers in the Australian market, rather they offered coffee at a higher price. Taking so many risks in a highly competitive market did not work well for Starbucks Australia. Eventually, the company sold 2/3 of its stores during the Great Recession of 2008. The magic of local baristas. To understand the failure story of Starbucks, first, you need to have an understanding of the Australian coffee culture. The coffee culture is rich and it's part of the great Australian consumer heritage. The coffee culture of Australia is not only about coffee but it's about socializing with the people you love. Australians love coffee but they love socializing with their friends and family in coffee shops more. Some big coffee chains run the Australian market and they do it very well. But a large portion of Australian coffee shops is based on single ownership. These independent coffee shop owners have a deeper understanding of their own culture and they grow their coffee shops with significant effort. The personal level branding and the familiarity among customers make these single owners highly powerful entities in the Australian coffee market. Where the average Australian consumer was used to the social coffee culture, Starbucks focused more on its global branding. It tried to use its exceptional market reach to gain the love of Australian consumers. The problem was, it didn't go so well. The Australian did not welcome Starbucks in a much friendly manner as they were not familiar with the Starbucks coffee culture. While Starbucks saw coffee as a product, average Australians saw coffee as an experience. Starbucks miserably failed to meet the expectations of the Australian, which eventually led to the failure of the coffee chain in the region. Also, the coffee chain owners were familiar with the consumers way before Starbucks thought of running operations. When you know your favorite barista on a personal level, why would you go for a foreign company that is already failing to meet your demands? That's how local baristas working in the region played a part in the failure of Starbucks in Australia. Finally, coming to the end of the case study, what is the current situation of Starbucks in Australia? The current situation of Starbucks Australia is not that bad. The company did not give up on this large market after the massive failures. Starbucks Australia has taken a slow and steady approach to market growth in Australia currently. After the shutdowns in 2008, the company made fewer increases in the market with steady effort. Currently, there are only 58 Starbucks in highly demanding cities in Australia. The company assured that coffee shops will only run operations in the cities where the market is stable and profit is consistent. Learnings. Like every other market, what are the key learnings we will get from this case study? Let's discuss them. The first learning of the case study is, research your market. Market research is one of the most influential factors in deciding the success of a company while expanding in the international market. Starbucks failed to understand the market and they paid for it with large losses in 8 years. Knowing your customer is the second takeaway from this case study. It is necessary to know the customers of a market before entering it. Starbucks Australia tried to make its fan base before making them familiar with them. While Australians love their rich coffee heritage, Starbucks tried to establish its own. This also did not work well for the company. So, if you are a businessman or management professional entering a new market, remember to know your customer. Remember, customer is king. The third lesson from this case is, do not hurry. If you want to expand your market, try to grow slowly. Good market positioning and a proper understanding of the market will eventually help you to grow. But if you hurry and make large investment decisions without understanding the market, your expansion plan will have a higher chance of collapsing fast.